Hello and welcome to the Final Fantasy 15 review Spoilercast.
Yep.
Impressions, final thoughts.
It's finally happened.
Yes, I'm your host, Cal G. And to my left is the coordinator extraordinaire.
Like Kent.
And our 10-year journey is finally over.
Yeah.
We have both beaten, or at least we've seen the end credits. We beat the story.
We beat the story, because this game is different in that context.
For Final Fantasy 15. And so if you are not finished the game, this is full spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to hear, our thoughts on everything, basically, don't listen to this. But if you want to know our final thoughts on it, this is the podcast for you. So, Mike.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 15.
So it's finally done.
Finally beat it. You beat it a couple weeks earlier than I did.
And I probably put a little bit more hours in than you did.
I think I clocked out at about 50.
Yeah, and I think I did 102.
Holy fuck!
Yeah.
All right, cool.
And yeah, I was pretty thorough about the game. But I think we'll start off with, I guess, our initial impressions. Like, basically, right out the bat, let's just get out the door. Like, did you, and just as a straight out, not like, oh, I had problems with it, but I liked it. Like, did you like the game or did you not like the game?
I liked the game.
I liked the game too.
Yes.
Yeah. If I was to say anything, it's like this game was supposed to be the standing point to find out whether or not Final Fantasy would even continue. Like, the franchise had been failing. It was not hitting it off in Japan as it used to, which was its source of income.
Yep.
And the market over here wasn't young. Market wasn't getting into it. They didn't grow up with Final Fantasy VII.
Even Square Enix themselves have admitted that their last couple tries at Final Fantasy were not excellent. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, the MMO has had some pretty good success. It's one of the few MMOs still really constantly running today. And Final Fantasy 12, 13, and some of the other side stuff has all been financially not a success for them. But this was their chance to relaunch it. And I think, according to the sales and according to the reports and stuff, is that they've done well enough that they're already on to 16. And I'm happy. I think this is the relaunch of the series, even though it's had some bumps along the way.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about the future of the series probably at the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
But one thing that I'm coming away from this game feeling that is odd to me, Mike, I don't feel like I got my Final Fantasy itch scratched.
I didn't either.
Necessarily.
Not entirely.
Isn't that weird?
I played more than you. I got a little bit more experience out of it. I'm probably a little bit more scratched than you are.
I near the end of the game, I definitely got it way more.
Way more.
But for a majority of my playing time, which was the open world, it almost could have been any open world game.
The open world context was way too open world compared to how much they kept on saying they were going to constrain it. And when the story constrained you to not being allowed to get out into the open world, that's when it started to feel like Final Fantasy.
The pacing of this game is
so
fucked
up.
It's fucked.
So fucked up.
It is fucked.
You can literally do anything important in the story, and then you're like, you could go spend 32 hours doing side questing and unlocking hidden dungeons.
I spent, the first little bit of the game funnels you a little bit. You have a big open world in it. I was right in Chapter 3, and then I spent probably half my playing time in Chapter 3.
Yeah.
In 25, 30 hours just fucking around, doing side quests, doing dungeons, doing whatever I was doing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like 4, 5, 6. And I was like, holy fuck. And then I had to get back to the open world, and I had another chunk of Duscae, that region. And I fucked around a little bit, not as long as the first time. And then it felt like 7, 8, 9. And then a little break, and then all the way to the end of the game. You almost didn't have a choice. You have a choice to go back.
You can use the dog to go back and shit, but that's it.
It was, the pacing is super fucked.
Super fucked. Because that was my thing. Same exact thing was I was in the desert. I didn't even start Chapter 1. I just started fucking doing side shit constantly.
Yeah, immediately.
Immediately. And I was just I ran around almost the entire desert before they even let me out of the desert, exploring shit. Which I was actually having a good time doing, even though that desert is the worst opening place ever because it's just a desert. Your opening place should not just be a blank desert.
Yeah, it was like Metal Gear 5 almost.
Yeah, it was a little bit fucking frustrating. But I was having fun playing the game and then I started playing the story. And then every time I played the story, I was really afraid of getting too far ahead because it kept going, if you agree to moving ahead in the story, you can't come back.
Sometimes it says you can't come back, and
But the thing is the second you start the story, they're like, you're free to do what you want.
Yeah, it was weird. I was in the swamp area up on the top left of the map, and it was like, once you leave this area, you can't come back. And I was like, oh. So I said no, and I ran around this area a little bit, doing a couple side quests around there, and I was like, okay, time to go back. Went back, and immediately I had the option to go back. I went back over. I was like, what the fuck are they talking about?
You could go back at any time. It doesn't matter. Every single time they said that, it was a complete lie. So like I kept spending so much time exploring and trying to get all this stuff done before it didn't happen because I was feeling a bit Final Fantasy 9-ish, and where in 9, like if something happened at a certain point in the story, there is literally no going back to doing that moment. There's a lot of stuff in 9 where it was just like, that's it.
Sometimes you had to wait a long time before you could actually like
go back and do anything. And even then, that was another thing. Like until you got the airship in the last like 10 hours of the game, you'd never be able to go back to that town. So like I was trying to accomplish things in that context, which is a very common trope in Final Fantasy. It's not the context in an open world game, and I feel like the story designers designed this for a Final Fantasy game, but the world and gameplay designers designed it as an open world game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was super weird.
It was super weird. And
I love
that's the weird. It was a really jarring contrast that kind of broke things for me a lot of the time.
In open world games, you make your own fun a lot, you know. Then that's kind of what you did. Like this, it was fun doing some relaxed chocobo quests, and then I'd be like, I'm gonna go do 2 dungeons in a row, and I'd seek them out, go do dungeons, and I love having the open world and then having a more linear structured dungeon and the dungeons are still pretty fucking big, even for
Yeah, they were great.
They were great. A lot of fun. Actually, probably one of my favorite aspects of this game was the optional dungeons and going through those.
Yeah, they were fun, and they were intimidating. Yeah.
But the thing is, I look back at this game now, and it's been a couple days since I've beaten it, and like, honestly, a lot of the moments that I like, or the ones that I'm remembering, are parts of the story. I spent 30 hours in the open world, and while I had fun at the time, and the combat's so great, like, it's really just a lot of fetch quests. It's really just a lot of like, go here, do this, go here, pick this up.
Yeah, there was a lot of repeating quests that were really fucking annoying, and some of the quests that just kept chaining off to doing more of the same thing, like chasing the frog girl around. Even though the reward for a ribbon is like a good fucking weapon or a good fucking accessory, like just I was like, all right.
Yeah, it's kind of like
the fucking dog tags one was the most biggest piss off. Like,
that one's the worst. Yeah,
like you're running around finding these fucking dog tags. I stopped doing them
after you told me that he doesn't give you anything.
He doesn't give you anything good at the end, and you literally the last quest is just like that's the last dog tag. It wasn't even like you got to go here and find like this guy who might still be alive, and then fight this thing, and then like save his family or whatever. So, it was just like that's the last dog tag.
Many missed opportunities. The last great open world game I played was Witcher 3. I know you didn't play Witcher 3, but it had a great way of even turning small things into like a hunt in Witcher 3. This guy would go to you and he'd be like, I think my wife might be like a fucking vampire. Can you go like stalk her and like figure this out and shit? And then you go and then the wife's like, she's like, I am a vampire. You can fucking slay me if you want, but if I give you, I might give you 10,000 gold and like just let me go fucking kill this family or whatever. And you got to make that decision. It's kind of interesting, and like there's a thing where you follow them around. I feel like with Final Fantasy, there's such a rich lore and history behind Final Fantasy, right? Like there are fucking Tonberries. You could have made a great epic storyline with the hunt for the King Tonberry, who's like
there is one
or something like that, right? Is there a King Tonberry? I didn't see one.
Well, no, there's a hunt for the King Tonberry, and there's even one of the big hunts is you fight 3 Tonberries that have like fucking lightsabers.
I fought 2 Tonberries.
Yeah, it's in the final game after you beat it, and they're actually like a fucking hard fight, and they're really fun to fight.
Yeah, I had fun fighting Tonberry, but like. When I fought my Tonberries, I was in Altissia, and I was like, hunt Tonberry. And I was like, all right. And I go to this place, they spawn, I kill them, and I was like, cool. It'd be neat if there was some sort of, like, something more than just, you're hunting for money, You know what I mean?
Well, like, a lot of those story cues and drops in it were supposed to come from the conversations that happened between them when they're just running around the world. So when I did the first hunt in Altissia, when the monsters showed up, they're like, oh, shit. How are demons even here? And they're like, just fight them and kill them, like, because they shouldn't be in town, right?
Yeah.
And at this point, things are getting worse and more demons are showing up. So it was like they're actually getting into the city. And the thing was, is that conversation started to go, and then suddenly it got cut off because I did a link strike, and they had to do the audio clip for that, and then I didn't get the rest of it.
No, man, I was so disappointed in that because I thought in Altissia I wasn't gonna be fighting anything, and I found hunts and stuff, and there was demons, and like they were talking like that. All the characters were talking, why are there demons here and stuff, and I wanted to figure out why are there demons here. I did all the hunts to try and figure out maybe it would trigger more conversation thing. I did all the hunts in Altissia and like nothing. There was no like conversation about like there was a whatever like
it's getting worse.
Yeah.
You know? Like you had to kind of put that all together yourself as a story unraveled, and there was a lot of stuff about that with the story that they would have you fill in from the open world. So one of the ones that got me was like the whole story behind Noctis's powers and the Oracle and stuff like that is never discussed in the game, but it is in there. It's just you gotta look at the fucking cosmology books for it to describe the entire lore of the Six and how the world was created and what the Oracle is and why the King exists and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And then that little history explains the actual main story about what it is with the main bad guy. I forget his name.
Arden.
And like it makes his story make more sense, and how much more in depth it is, and like it's just by encountering random things in the open world that it makes it complete. But if you don't look for those, like literally hunt, and they're tiny little books and shit, but you look for every little tiny cue, you would never get it.
Yeah, because I read some book about like the Six or something like that, and like they barely ever say that. Like they like you just know these. Like if you're a Final Fantasy player, you know these are the summons, you know they're a big deal and stuff. But like it didn't really explain anything. And there were times in this game where I kept thinking like, if I hadn't seen Kingsglaive, would I understand? How, I want to know what the experience is, because we'd know even less. Well, Aaron, and you watched the anime too, right? Like
Aaron had no clue, and I made him go back and check out all of the stuff, and he was suddenly afterwards, he was like, "Oh, this makes way more sense." But even then, with those things, it makes far less. Like the relationship between the four guys is way more moving to me because I watched Brotherhood, and I highly suggest Brotherhood to anyone because understanding their connections, they were actually quite moving stories, right? For all four of them. And even Noctis's story for like why he is a little bit more like he is, right? And his whole like getting injured as a kid and losing his mother, etc. Like that makes more sense and stuff like that. But there were other things that like weird and plot points just got dropped so quickly. So we know that Lunafreya is out there and she's trying to talk to the Six for some reason that we didn't know at the time, right? But then she starts encountering people and they're sick or something, and she's healing them, right? This is a huge important point to the entire story, right? That the Oracle is the one that cures this disease that apparently is afflicting everybody, and she's the only one who can cure it, right? Which ties into Arden later on being one of the ones who did cure it, and he absorbed all the demons too much, and he absorbed all the demons, and then he became a demon king himself, and that's why the Six abandoned him, and he got all pissy. And basically it was like this cycle that created, that the Six had created basically, and now they had to use the king to sacrifice himself to end the cycle. Right, and it's this very deep story based on that, which is a brilliant story idea. But it doesn't get dropped in anything. It just gets landed on you, and she's healing diseases. There's a disease.
Yeah,
you know,
it's for all its faults, for all the way the storytelling is poor, doesn't get across. I like the story.
It's a great story.
I like this story. I like the story more than like Final Fantasy VIII, even 7 kind of. Like I like the concept of it a lot.
I love the story.
It's just so poorly executed. It's frustrating.
Yeah. Because, like, even at the end of the game, when you're crawling around fucking the main bad guy's place and you're going through the lab, and if you read the books in the lab, it tells you about how they started finding people who were infected, and then they started rounding them up and trying to kill them, and then the infection started to spread, and you're like, oh shit, this demon thing is starting to become, like, turning humans into demons, and it turns out all demons are just human beings.
Yeah.
And or animals that got turned into demons, and you're like, oh fuck, I've been killing humans this whole time, and you know this infection can't be stopped, and that's why Luna's been doing this. Is she knew the coming darkness was this, and I'm like, this just got so much bigger, and you dropped it on me in chapter 13
in an optional to read book, in like a page of text, like and horrible way of telling.
And it
story.
does that in many different contexts. We could go over all of them, but that's the most frustrating part to me. At the end of the day, for the whole thing was like, there's so much. They wrote a great story.
You were telling a cool Final Fantasy story.
Yeah. And even the ending, which I guess maybe also because I spent so much time making sure to keep myself up on the story before the end. Like when it hit and it finally ended, I was like, wow, that's really moving. You know, like again, we're all Spoilercast here, so prep for the spoilers. Like Noctis actually does have to kill himself, and does. Yeah. He dies at the end of the whole game.
Sick.
And in their like as their ghosts or whatever in their last little piece of heaven, Luna and him get to like at least have some sort of heaven together.
Yeah.
And his bros, he has this last little moment where he says he loves them and thanks them so much, and then he goes off, and they all are very well aware of the sacrifice he has to make that his father knew was coming, and everyone just threw on him, and he did in his last loyal grasp to like save the world.
That could have been a moment, like I don't want to say as powerful as any Last of Us moment, but like
it could have
teetering on the edge of that kind of thing.
Like him crying at the end and saying thank you to the bros and everything on their bro trip, and making the whole
campfire scene.
Yeah. Because the whole story is about this bro trip, and then all the photos start coming up, and it's all about this like last trip he got to have with his best friends. And you're just like, oh my god, I did that. And I'm looking back at my memories of my photos, and I'm like, oh my god, I literally had this bro trip. He's dead now, and this is the last of his memories.
It's super frustrating because if they had just told it better, made it tighter, made it a little more cohesive, they could have told the story that like again, like I don't want to say rivals Last of Us or something, but it could have been as emotionally impacting.
It could have been impacting as Last of Us.
It was. I think it was still close, even with the fucking mess they have.
Yeah, because it was such a good idea.
Yeah.
But they executed the story wrong. And it's literally my number one, only true, honest-to-God complaint with the story. The rest of it is nitpicking at the end of the day. which if the story had been condensed, all the nitpicking would have just been like our little side nitpick cast, right? But this is the only error, and it's what makes it not like a epic Final Fantasy that runs with Final Fantasy 7, 9, and 10. It is with 8 and like 6 and stuff like that, is because its story, while great, was executed poorly.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. I want to call you out before if we got any angry emails. A lot of people love Final Fantasy 6. I don't think anyone's defending 8's story.
No.
8 can suck my dick.
No, that's the thing. Like 8 and 6, and for me, at least in my head and my ranking system, right? Like my top 3 Final Fantasies that have never moved since like for a long full 10 years now almost are 7, 9, and 10. Right? Nothing's shaked those 3 out of that position as being the most epic RPGs I've ever played.
Yeah.
Even within that series, though, nothing else is going to knock them out. And if this was going to take a chance to do that, it could have done it. Because to move on to the positive things...
No, I'm not done with frustrations.
Oh, okay.
I have 2 major ones.
Okay.
First off, end of chapter... So, actually, I have 3. It's chapter 13. A lot of people really hate that chapter.
What was that chapter?
That is when you are depowered completely because there's a machine that turns off Noctis' powers, and you have a ring.
I kind of like that chapter.
I like that chapter for 15 minutes. I don't like that chapter for an hour or longer.
I liked
It ran out of ideas like 20 minutes in, and it was just like, upgrade your keycard. Keep upgrading your keycard. Keep going. Like, and I liked Arden like smugly like saying this shit to you over the intercom. Like, I liked that.
I liked the horror of them walking down the halls and hiding.
Love it.
That was
Did
amazing.
not love it after 20 minutes. Like, that was it. It just... There was no new ideas introduced.
See,
it was just like...
I was hooked on that whole portion.
It was just more of it, and I was like, oh...
I was hooked on that whole portion. I thought it was an amazing like idea to just kind of chuck into the whole thing. What I hated was how easily it bugged out.
It didn't bug out for me.
Oh my god, I had so much. After a point, if I used the death spell on the fucking guards whenever they saw you, because like you could kill them at the end of the day, right?
I didn't. I killed every one of them. I didn't stealth once.
Oh,
I fought every single one of them.
The first one, I just fought the first 2 and they died, and then after that, if I used a death spell on them, they would shrink, but then they drop their weapon. Yeah. And every time they swung at me, it wouldn't hit, so they couldn't hit me anymore, and all they do is just chase me around.
I ended up doing the dodge thing to kill a lot of them. The holy dodge.
So I reset to a quick save, and then I just started doing the holy dodge, and then eventually they dropped their weapon and they couldn't hit me anymore. So I was just now perpetually chased, and until they died, I couldn't get through the door. So
I think that chapter is a super interesting idea. For me, it went on. It dragged for way too long.
It was a little long. I'll give you that.
For me, it could have ended like half hour sooner, and I would have liked it. Because I like the end of that chapter.
Yeah.
Except the story moment that like really perplexed me. Maybe you can clear this up. Noctis finds a crystal.
Yeah.
He gets absorbed into it.
Yeah.
And like his bros are like, ah, like they're freaking out, and they try to kill Arden, whatever.
Yeah.
10 years go by.
Yeah.
They see him and they're like, hey. There was no like, man, isn't that fucked up? You got sucked into a crystal? Like there was no...
That was weird.
There was no like mention of it. It was really like, it was this... there was such... I felt like there was such a opportunity, because 10 years had passed, like, you know, like Pronto could have lost an arm or something, but like, you know, it could have been like, holy shit, like you're still alive, like this is fucking, this is crazy, like you got us absorbed into a crystal, we didn't know what to do. It was like, hey, been a long time, huh?
They could have they could have fixed that by literally just having Arden say, like, explain exactly what happened, because Arden wants him to show up at the end and kill him. Cause like, I want you to.
Well, Arden knew, but I didn't know. Yeah. It never got relayed to me that they knew that was going to happen.
That's what I mean. So they could have, at that last scene where Arden was walking out, just say he's in there and for 10 years, you know. He's the chosen of the crystal.
Like, yeah, he could have said, like, he's like, you're without your leader now, boys. Like, he's gone for 10 years or something, right?
Yeah.
And like, they never
explained how they figured out. And that's the thing. Even after that, they didn't go to a campfire and he sat back and goes like, I've learned I have to die. Right?
Yeah.
They do that at the very end of the game when he's telling them the story.
Yeah.
Like, I love you guys so much, and they're all crying. Like, that's when the explanation...
You could have seen that scene... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You could have seen that scene there. Like, it was fucking
weird. And it would have made it so poignant of having to fight your way through this thing to your death that you knew was coming.
Like, Mike, if you got absorbed into a crystal for 10 years, you best believe that I'm fucking bringing that up as soon as you come out. As soon as I see you again. Not just, like, really casually, like, look, check out my goatee. Like, I don't know. Like, it was so weird. Yeah. Another weird thing is, another opportunity with the 10 years gap, they show you Talcott. They don't show you, like, Cindy or Iris, is that her fucking name?
Yeah, and they mention her.
They sure do, but they don't. I wanted to see Cindy in 10 years. I was like, she's still wearing that skimpy outfit?
Yeah.
10 years older? What's she wearing now? What's going on? What's Cindy?
Yeah, and they said, like, Iris now is known as the Demon Hunter, and,
whatever, yeah, and, like, fuck. It was just, like, again, missed opportunity. So, yeah, Chapter 13 frustrated me. the crystal thing really frustrated me because I was like, are we not going to talk about this?
Yeah.
I want to talk about this. And the lack of armor in that game. Why did they even fucking give you an option to change your clothes?
Because like at the end of the day, the only two that mattered was wearing the main outfit or wear the Kingsguard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all the other options are like you get significantly weaker, except for like one stat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if you took the coats off for the main outfit, you got way more attack and you became a lot harder hitting, but you lost a lot of HP.
Yeah.
Which was your toss up one way or another. And then with the Kingsguard, it just turned out that it was better to wear the whole thing. There's no point in taking the coats off because it was worse. And then there were other outfits, like casual outfits and shit, but they were not worth wearing. And then you could unlock the nuclear outfit to wear anytime you want, but all it did was just make you immune to fire, which was like, no one really hits me with that many spells.
No, I'm fine.
I'm fine. Yeah, and now like there's all these unlockable costumes coming out as patch releases, right? But the game's over, and most people have completed most of the end game content. So what's the point of?
Yeah, that doesn't do us any good. The early adopters, you know, like it was. I kept thinking I was missing something, and I didn't want. I tried not. I tried to stay away from like Final Fantasy threads. I didn't want to go Google stuff because I didn't want to get spoiled or anything. I wanted to kind of find it organically. But at some point, I Googled like end game armor, like what is there like for I wanted to upgrade my character. I wanted to. That's an essential part of Final Fantasy to upgrading your characters is weapons and armor. And like this had a complete lack of.
Yeah, if we're hitting on the smaller stuff like that, I agree. There should have been more outfits, which is small. I mean, like whatever. Just give me more outfits. And it didn't ruin my experience at the end of the day.
No, absolutely not.
I didn't care that much, really, that too much. And I did like the last garb, and I liked Noctis actually looking like he was older. They did a good job with that. But what I didn't like was I liked the leveling system. At the beginning, I thought I was unlocking things too quickly, but then eventually it just became fucking hardcore.
It became way too hard to unlock things.
To get AP, and there's a way to do like this AP grind, which is like it's way back in the beginning. You remember those areas where you'd go into and they're like hunting grounds for the dogs and stuff like that, and the music would change and the Coco didn't want to go in.
Oh yeah.
There's one in there that if you got the Shield of the Just, which is one of the Royal Arms, every time you do a dash attack with that, does an AoE attack when it hits. You just sit there, whistle for the dogs to show up, and then you AoE hit them. They all die at once, and you'll get like 4 AP at a time. And you do that for 2 hours, and you can get like 999 AP. So you got to sit there killing dogs for 2 hours.
Even then, you can only unlock 333 AP skills. That'd be fucking annoying.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So in the beginning, you get the 2 accessory slots pretty quickly, but then you need the third one to kind of like, because eventually you start maxing out on having accessories that only one character is supposed to have.
Mike, I'm going to be honest with you right now. I didn't get the third accessory slot. I forgot about the Ascension grid.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, maybe it's after I got back from my Christmas holidays, I didn't, I at the end of the game, I was like, oh, right, Ascending! And I, like, looked back and I had 240-something AP, and I was like, I didn't use this for, like, 20 hours, probably. Yeah. It did not matter to me. Or it didn't matter to my characters,
I had a similar experience in the beginning, like, about close to, like, last few chapters. And then once I started focusing on doing it and unlocking extra stuff in it, the combat switches pretty hardcore. You get a lot of really neat things.
I got not all the techniques. I got a lot of techniques for the guys, and that's what mattered to me. But like all the other, like there's a couple other ones where like third accessory slot. I was like, that'd be cool to have, but like.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, so that it's very like tiny little bits that happen, and I really wanted that third accessory slot. And if you were going to do that, like,
I'm sure if I was to do post game content, I would need it.
Oh yeah. But like for Ignis, he's got an item that's called he's got 3 of them in different levels, but it's like the Grand Chamberlain is the last one.
Yeah.
And it automatically at 50% of Noctis' health, he'll heal you with an item, a scaling level potion on the first one, and then high potion, and then elixir.
Oh, I have that one. Yeah.
The Grand Chamberlain, he heals you at 50% with an elixir. Which is amazing for that last dungeon where you can't use potions, and he's the only one who can do that to you.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But, like, that item, you're going to keep on him, which takes up a slot. But that means you'll never get a fucking HP item, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's 2 items, basically, for each character that they should be wearing at the end of the day, right? And I really, really liked having the Link Strike one that made it at any distance someone would Link Strike with you, so I could be, like, chasing a dog that's outside of the group, and then suddenly I could Link Strike. He just shows up, whoa, and he hits them. I loved having that item, so I wanted to have that on each one of them. But now they had no items that boosted their stats, and I was dying all the time to a lot of the end, like, game big monsters. So I had to unlock that third accessory slot to go and finally get stupid. There's an armor one piece that like upgrades like 3 different stats. The most important, like your HP, your attack, and like your defense.
Was it the assist suit?
That's the first version of it. There's a last one. It's the Magitech Suit 1, and there's a Magitech Set Suit 2 that you get from a random drop monster from a dropship, and it's like the best armor in the game. But like that's what I mean. Like I'm sitting there like having to basically grind like fuck, like insanely for hours on end. Even they just did a patch that made it a little bit faster to try and unlock this last thing. Final Fantasy is about its items, its gears, its stuff, right? And there were lots of little systems like this that kind of pissed me off. So one of the ones that got me was Sid's always like, bring me this stuff to upgrade your items and shit like that.
That's so annoying.
Yeah. One, not only was it annoying to go get, but two, it really at the end was just 4 items. You couldn't upgrade anything else.
You couldn't choose. Yeah, it was.
There was no upgrading tree or upgrading lots of items. It's just these 4 weapons.
And you couldn't choose what you gave to him. I wanted him to upgrade my engine blade, and he's like, I took your circular saw. I'm like, you fucking dick.
Yeah, that's the thing. And even then, all it does is it just upgrades some weapons, which get replaced very easily. Except for your Ultima Blade for Noctis, which you can get super early, and he'll never have to switch swords until your post-game. Because you can't get a better sword than the Ultima Blade until after you beat the game. So it's just like, what's the fucking point of these upgrade systems? So these little dropped-in systems, like the carrot farming, and like...
the carrot farming's so stupid. It's so dumb. Like, so why?
Dumb. Yeah.
It's so dumb.
Like, just weird little droplets of systems that could have been whole systems that we would have loved to have. Massive, complicated upgrade, your equipment and, like, a whole farming simulator would have been fine. Just give me a whole
Why
thing.
can't I plant 4 carrots at once? They're done overnight.
Instead of just,
so weird.
I'm going to take 1 gear and make my sword better and or farm 4 carrots. Like, make it a whole thing. Don't make it this little tiny fucking useless shit.
Another thing that it was, to me, a missed opportunity was I only had one instance in that game where I was I was just randomly wandering around. I was trying to pick up a treasure or a fucking ingredient or something, and something flew overhead of me, and it was like a griffin of some sort, something, and it landed, and I had to fucking fight it, and it was just random. It wasn't a hunt, it wasn't anything, and it was like, I was like, oh shit, and I it was
You only had one of those?
One! It was it!
Again,
I didn't have any big creatures just randomly show up and fight me.
Really?
None.
I got swarmed half the time.
I didn't get anything.
That's my only other component for the open world part, and it's kind of really at the end my last true gripe about the game is the open world was so randomer that like you had a completely different experience with it, which is neat. But like they had that whole video about the living world of Final Fantasy, and I never saw Coriolis or whatever like nesting on top of ruins. I saw.
No, I was wandering, and then all of a sudden I got sideswiped by a fucking lightning tiger, and I'm like, shit.
Yeah. And like I probably twice had fucking herds of something run across the road. I had to stop and wait for it to cross the road and shit. Had that happen twice. Most of the time when you're driving on the road, the monsters are nowhere near the road.
No.
So I'm not picking up on all these like alligators hanging out by the beach and all that shit that they showed us in the preview. They most of the time were so far off I never got to see them.
Yeah.
So they weren't really everywhere. I did though when I walked around. I got swarmed by shit. Like I had the giant fucking ox thing chase me once. I had a big toad way before I was ready for it.
No, there was very few things that I ever got. I wanted to get ambushed by a griffin. I wanted there was that Midgar snake thing, the giant thing. And like I was
Sormir.
That was the thing from FF7, right? Yeah, and that was sick.
I saw that. I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to go back to kill it.
Yeah, same. But I knew where it was, and I knew that I was gonna go kill it at some point. It didn't like all of a sudden like a giant snake slithering, and I was like, I gotta run, and then it was like chasing. I didn't get any moment like that. It was just that one time with I think it was a griffin. I don't know.
There's a griffin that runs around. Yeah, I had a whole bunch of those. Yeah, I had a shit ton.
No, I just got like fairly regular things like the gigantic.
I liked that. So that was one of my compliments for the game was that I had a lot of moments like that. I had one where I went down. I found the mine in the desert area really early on at like level 7. I went in and all the goblins are level 7, so I'm like, oh, I should be here. And there's a quest like get to the bottom and kill the demon at the bottom. And then I get to the bottom and this fucking demon's level 72.
Yeah.
And I'm just like and I'm just like warping around, praying to God that I can try and get out. And like all my friends are all dying, and I'm just like healing them to use as fodder while I try and find the fucking stairs.
I love that shit though. I love that. It's kind of like a fake out, right?
Yeah.
Like even there was another dungeon where there was like 2 mind flayers at the very beginning, and they were like level 45 or something. And I was like, I could barely take them on at the point I was, and I was like, fuck. But then like once I leveled up a bit, got past them, and I was like, and then the rest of the dungeon was like kind of easy compared to those two, and I was like, I like that a lot.
I like that. Yeah, that was great. And there was also lots of really great dungeons. Other than being a little bit bland inside a few of them and a little bit repeaty,
for sure.
The ice one was one of my favorites though. They were like the best part. They were a lot of fun. They were complicated. They were good to get through. I wish the glowing items on the ground were clearer to see. I walked past so many of them.
I wish they weren't like, I know it's a lot to ask probably, but like I wish they weren't just glowing thing. Like I wish if it was an actual sword, they would have modeled the sword or something. Yeah, or like it's a potion or like
whatever. That's something on the ground. Like I would have preferred that, but whatever. That's small.
Yeah, that's a nitpick.
Yeah. Of things I liked, things I liked in the story, I'll hit on first. I loved a lot of the story components for certain chapters. I loved the train chapter.
Wait, sorry, one more. Before I fucking...
What?
This is a really small nitpick, but like, I got the chocobo, right?
Yeah.
You get the chocobos. They're your chocobos. It's the same one. I got a white chocobo.
Yeah.
They painted mine white or what? Painted. Made it white, whatever.
Yeah.
And like, I had to rent the chocobo, and it's such a small fee. It's like, why is it even there? Why do I have to bother renting this fucking thing? It's mine. Why can't I just always just call my chocobo?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, why put that barrier there?
I don't.
Even fast travel, it's like fast travel with 10 gil, and you're like, yes, like why? Who's too poor to be traveling? You know, like I don't know. No. Shit like that was like it's this weird barrier that doesn't even need to be there because it's so inconsequential.
Yeah, like the paying part of it was like, I mean, I like the systems should have been there. They need to all be there. Like the option to actually call your car to you to work wherever you want to go. Like they had all the systems to make traveling. It wasn't the fastest thing in the universe. Sometimes it was a little bit like, oh, I got to go there, but it was still not hard to get around. I mean, I agree that there shouldn't have been that kind of boundary.
It was just like, well, yeah, why can't I just always call my chocobo? I can whistle.
I did like that there was some interesting unlocking stuff with that convinced you to play certain things. Like that with the Chocobo one, it was the only one where it did that. Where the medals didn't mean as much, but in the races, you could literally just take off on the side and find these hidden pairs. And if you do that, you can unlock colors for your friends' Chocobos.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can color them up and stuff. So that was kind of neat. But yeah, so on the positive side, so we don't just bitch about this like thinking that we hate the game. In the story mode, I liked a few of the chapters a lot. I loved the train chapter.
I love a lot of the chapters.
Yeah, like the train chapter with all the like hanging on the side of the walls while you're like riding on top. And
yeah, that was really cool.
That was great. I loved most of the summon fights were actually pretty neat.
So in our previous Spoilercast, I think I complained about the Titan fight when I was like, I wish that was a little more epic. But going through it and having the Leviathan fight, which is super dope, I was like, okay, so if they were all this cool and this different, like if the Titan one is just you smacking his hand back and you froze his hand, whatever, and then like the Leviathan fight, you went fucking Super Saiyan, and I was like, this is the dopest thing! Yeah. And I was just like, fucking, going around. Yeah. Another thing I love about that is, and I think this is imperative for games to do this, when there's a really cool moment, when there's something like you fucking turn Super Saiyan, make that sequence really easy. And this was really easy. You felt powerful, and you felt like Leviathan was your bitch at that point. You were just like, I'm fucking it up. Like, you're just tossing these, like, royal arms at him and shit. Like, I love they did, like, Gears of War 2 had a segment where all of a sudden you're on these flying beasts. And they made it, like, super simple, so you felt like a badass. You nailed it the first try. The only way you could probably die is if you were, like, the most incompetent 3-year-old in the entire planet. But I love that kind of shit. I love that, and I'm not saying I don't like challenge, but, like, I love when you feel super powerful and they make it easy for you.
Yeah, no, that was a great part. I loved all of that. I loved the whole thing behind the six. They felt like these grand beings.
I loved the tongue they spoke in, like the weird like language. Like, I'm like, oh,
well, that was all different because like even Shiva's was only backwards talk. Each one was different. Yeah.
Oh shit! I didn't.
Shiva's was just her talking backwards.
Interesting. I didn't even pick up on that.
But that was great. I loved when we were on the train and you stop and then Shiva's whole dead body is like hanging off the side of it. And then figuring out that the girl is...
Gentiana?
Gentiana, is Shiva. Ifrit's fight was actually a lot of fun.
Which one?
The last Ifrit.
Oh, Ifrit. Yeah. Is it Ifrit?
Is it? I thought it was Ifrit.
I say Ifrit.
Ifrit?
You say Chocobo, I said Chocobo. You say Ifrit, I say Ifrit.
What I don't like about the summons, the only thing is that you do get the spirit of Bahamut, and then you can only summon him once.
Oh, yeah, so in that fight, was it... This is the thing I think I only heard, I'm not sure if it was true. Mm-hmm. Can you only summon once a day?
No.
Oh, you can just summon as many times
I've summoned Ramu in 2 sequential fights.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I was under the impression that you could only summon once per day. Mm. So, like, when I was fighting Ifrit and the summon thing came up, I was like, I'm not wasting it, I'm kicking his fucking ass. So, his health, I got his health bar all the way down, continuing to smack him, and, like, I was like, there's no HP in his health bar, what the fuck is happening? Yeah, and, like, Shiva starts talking, like, summon me, just fucking, just do it, bitch, and I was like, so I did it, and I was like, oh, you have to do this, sorry. I was like, okay. All right.
Yeah.
That was such a funny thing where I was like, no, I'm not gonna waste my summon. I have to fight the final boss after this.
Yeah, there's no waste. It's like they pop all the time.
Yeah.
But
another piss off about that was that, like, I got Rema.
Yeah.
I got him like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
I got Leviathan once, and Shiva only in that cutscene, but I'm not sure you can get it otherwise.
I found that they started popping more often. So like I decided when I hit Insomnia, and like you're going to the town into the city. I just ran to the first one and left. I was like, all right, I'm under leveled for this, and I was like the monsters like 62, and they were actually kicking
72.
72.
I ran by everything. I stealthed around because like every monster in that city is harder than the final bosses.
Yeah,
way harder.
But I wanted to kill them all. So I left and I went back to do all the final content I could do before they basically limit you and you have to finish the game. What was I saying? Sorry, what was the point?
Monsters are hard. Ifrit.
Oh, yeah. So I did that and I left and I came back. All of the summons started happening, and because I started remembering the context for it. What they should have done is given you a more clear visual cue. Because you probably didn't push it at particular times. Like, if your whole team is down, then you summon Titan, right? But you also have to be in an open plane. You can't be inside, right? If you drop just instantly, that'll be removed, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
If your whole team gets hurt and it goes into red, it'll be Shiva or Leviathan. But Leviathan, you need to be near water. If you're not near water, you won't summon Leviathan. Okay. So, like, and that's...
Yeah, they should have, like,
made a different...
I didn't see Titan at all.
Yeah, because, like, I had Titan summon come up, and I never pushed it. I was just not bothering to summon them at that point. But if the queue... And they are slightly different in color, a little bit, when the effect starts to come up. But they should have made it, like, if Ramuh's happening, it's going to be yellow sparklies, right? And then if it's Shiva,
or just
blue...
make the L2 trigger button, make that yellow.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Yeah, just to give me a cue that I know which one's coming, because then I started just pushing it every time it came up. I started getting different ones. I suddenly started summoning Leviathan because I was near water, and suddenly every time I was in the desert, it was Titan, and then...
I summoned Leviathan against, like, crabs.
Yeah.
We're like...
I love summoning like, I was just, like, fighting anything. I'd be, like, fighting a fucking level 2 something, and it's like, oh, you... Because they say he pops whenever you drop, but I've had him come when I'm just... Because it's also, the longer the fight goes, he comes up. I've had it where I was just dodging enemies, but I kept switching between combat as I was going along, and suddenly it's just like, summon now, because apparently you've been in for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I haven't really been, and then I just hit it, and the entire map's cleared, and I was like, yep.
Really like how powerful they made the summons in this. They felt...
Until the end game, they kill everything in one shot, and then in the end game, they can't kill. They do a shit ton of damage.
So I tried to fight a lot of things in that city. I could almost kill nothing, because I was only level 55 or something by the end of the game. I probably could have, like, if I kept going, war of attrition, but, like, after I realized how many things were in that city, I was like, no.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, I was like, no. But I really liked it. Like, that felt like Final Fantasy to me. I was like, I'm in the end game, and there's this huge scorpion monster thing, the fucking Naga head snakes.
And
that reminded me of, like, going into Sin in Final Fantasy X, and, like, there's a behemoth inside of him, and, like, you know, shit like that.
And there was a behemoth at the end of this one.
Oh, yeah, there was,
like a flying one, a king behemoth.
That one was... He was like a bitch, though.
He was a bitch.
He was, like, level 40.
Yeah.
Like, I was like...
He was a bitch.
I saw him, and I was like, gotta be a way to sneak by this thing. Because everything else is so powerful behind him. I was like, hey, there's no way I'm fighting that thing.
There's, like, a level 90 hunt for a king behemoth, though, in the open world. So, like, there's a big version of him. He's just, like, a weak little intro version. Okay. But yeah, so like lots of great moments in the stories that I actually did like, lots of great chapters I liked a lot in it. I mean, I don't have to go over all of them, but I like the train chapter.
Actually, the Behemoth chapter we've seen in all the previews for Final Fantasy 15, but I love that.
That was great.
Great sequence. I wish they would have done more stuff like that for the hunts.
Yeah.
You know, just a little more. Make it a story. Don't just make it. All right, Ignis, drive there. Okay, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna fucking kill the last unicorn.
Yeah.
and then we go back. You know. Also another annoyance. Sorry, this is just again tiny thing. Is like, why couldn't we stack hunts? I wish we could have.
Because stacking hunts would have been nice rather than just constantly swapping them. That's true.
For sure. Anyways, back to stuff we like.
Yeah. So yeah, like I liked the train story. I liked the ending. I love the ending. I loved.
I love the Ifrit fight. So cool.
I love the Ifrit fight. There was lots of really great story moments. So there's always great potential inside of there. Mechanics wise, best thing about the entire game, combat.
Absolutely.
It's funny enough, we were worried as fuck.
I was like, lividly worried about it. I was like, I really hope I like that combat.
And it turned out to be one of the best combat systems.
It's
I've
addictive
had.
as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, great.
Link striking is so much fun.
Yep. Using the abilities of your fucking teammates is always great.
Is amazing. They did come through with the whole you only really get fire, lightning, and blizzard at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And ring magic turns out to be useless.
Yeah.
I mean, you do get that infinite, like, instant kill if your MP's at full, but it never works on everything. So, apparently they're releasing a patch to buff the fuck out of ring magic, because for the item that he spent so much time being afraid of putting on, and that, like, Nyx put on and summoned an entire city of golems to fight with, and all I can do is cast death and create a poof of holy.
Yeah.
You know, like, what's the fucking point? And even said at one point, which I never really got, was, like, if you used Regis's sword and the ring at the same time together, because it said in the little description, you unlock its true power, but it locks out your other abilities. And I'm like, okay, so I tried that in the open world. It doesn't do anything. Or if it did, I don't know what it's supposed to do. So if that's a thing that's actually real, I've tried to look it up. No one said anything about it. So
interesting. I didn't even.
Yeah, I was just like, all right. Anyways, but yeah, ring magic was a little bit disappointing, but I didn't really care all that much because there was so many cool things. The techniques were a ton of fun to use, and a lot of them were really neat. You know, like Ignis's Mark was a good one for the starting. Prompto's abilities are a lot of fun.
I like Starshell. Starshell's my fucking jam.
Yeah, I use Starshell. I switched to his last one, Prompto's last one.
What was that?
Trigger Happy, I think it was, and he just like fires his guns off like hardcore at a couple of people. Gladiolus' last one, like that giant like lightning wave slash thing was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I ended up using his Royal Guard because every time I ever got stuck somewhere when a monster's like, you're in a corner, wham, 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 I just hit Royal Guard and I'd flip behind him and then I could go up and do a big strike.
I use Downhammer for a lot of the game because he's just doing 9999 damage with it. I was just like, alright, you're fucking, I'm hitting this thing with my fucking daggers and he, like, Gladiolus fucking drops down and like, quarter of the HP bar goes down. I'm like, great, and I just start stabbing more until he gets it again.
I liked Ignis was so fucking like most important. His biggest and the most important ability. Everyone else always kept using enhancement, where like he powers you with. I
did regroup and enhancement for both for a long time.
Yeah, but his overwhelm is the key to the game because he makes.
Which one's overwhelm?
Overwhelm is he makes everyone use all of their death blows on a target.
Oh.
So, like, the death blows are the death blow abilities that you can unlock with them. So, you know, if you stun a character, Gladiolus will come up and do something. Or, you know, if you're in trouble, Gladiolus will come up and, like, do a stun attack or something like that. They all hit for more damage than anything else that you can do next to the techniques. And they also have a limit break damage ability once you break the limit damage on the Ascension grid. So, you just do all of them that you have. To a single guy. All of your guys just come up and basically start wailing on the fucking guy like as if you're doing your armor chain. And it costs two things, so you can just keep doing it over and over again. And it's just like fucking...
That's sick. I didn't even know that.
They all wail for so long trying to pull off all their death blows that you're all immune to damage while it happens. So it's just this chance to be immune and wail on something.
Oh my god, yeah. No, I didn't even get that ability. I used his enhancement, which was really useful, and regroup for a long time in the game.
Regroup for a long time was a good one because it was the only way to like kind of gather everyone together and heal them.
Yeah.
Until like elixirs just became like potions.
Yeah, this is a common thing in Final Fantasy. I just don't use anything until the end game. So I just had like 90 fucking elixirs and like 45 high elixirs and all that shit. So I was like, all right.
And then I like by that point too, I had like 50 fucking Mega Phoenixes and stuff, and the Mega Phoenixes heal everyone to full and bring them back to life. So I was just popping Mega Phoenixes. I was like, fuck it, I can use these as much as I want.
Again, this is kind of going back to the story, but I really like Arden as a villain. Even like
he was great,
great villain, like really cool, like rivaling some of the best in Final Fantasy. Again, if he was just explained a little more, it would have been better.
Yeah. I liked the monster designs. A lot of the monster designs were great. Some of them were a bit repetitive, but then again, it's Final Fantasy. That's just part of the cast.
I loved seeing like just a giant jumbo flan and shit. Like things like that.
Like finding the Midgar's Sormir snake suddenly somewhere.
Yes, I love that. I loved that.
I like just like walking around suddenly getting stabbed with 1,000 needles until I finally spotted the fucking cactuar.
Never found a cactuar.
You never found a cactuar?
Not once.
Ran into so many of them.
No, not once.
Yeah, it's like I had like every time I was out, I'm like fucking thing.
I ran into a ton of coral or whatever.
I ran into a few of those, and they were like the fucking worst.
Yes, they're annoying as fuck. Yeah. Holy shit!
And they just come and like wipe you out, and then go sit over in a corner and heal, and then you're just like, "Hi, okay, we're all back up into shape." So is he. all right, let's try and get this. And then he just wipes you all back out and goes back out and heals. And you're like, fucking potion waster.
There was a hunt for like 7 corals at one point, and I was like, that fight went on for like must have been a half hour. So
Yeah, it was a long fight.
It was a long fight. It was good.
It was a big one.
Sometimes I liked looking at like I remember like I was wandering around looking at the time, and it was like it's like 1 in game. Yeah. And like mad tech troopers drop, and I fight them all off, and it's like 2 hours passed. I like the idea that these guys were fighting for 2 hours in the middle of a street.
I loved the Royal Arms. I thought that was an amazing addition. But I wish they drained just your MP instead of your HP, because the HP, because it's actually harder to heal yourself if you suck your life down too far and it doesn't go back up to max every time. Wasting HP is way worse, but your MP does restore. And that made me not use the Royal Arms. When
I
were
used
amazing.
a lot. So I always had 3 equipped for the stat boosts.
Yeah.
And then I had 1 thing that I'd use as a normal weapon.
So yeah, and I used.
And then at the very end, I started using the royal weapons way more.
Yeah, I used 3 of the only weapons that link strike. So I always had a great sword on, a spear, and the basic sword. I switched to using a dagger instead of my great sword, because great swords got useless because they were too slow after a while. But I always wanted to have as many options, no matter what weapon I was using, to link strike, because it did more damage than anything else, and it was the first thing I limit broke open. That they could do their limit damage as high as I wanted. Plus, if you were just smart enough just to do a quick turnaround and just not just warp strike into everything, you could link strike everything, and battles went 10 times faster. I was watching YouTube videos and everyone was like smashing on this thing for a while, and I'm like, just walk behind it and hit it once, and it'll die to 12,000 damage. Just stop doing the dumb way.
That was one of the best parts of the game. Is dodging around and like getting behind
interactive, like working with your team, and the team is more important. I watch so many people just let their team die, and they're like hammering on this final boss forever. And I'm like, no. If you keep them alive and use all of their abilities properly, and if you leveled them up in the Ascension grid to have like the ability to heal themselves really well and heal you, you become like unstoppable. Your team is so important, right? It's all about what they do in the fight, because you're good, right? But without them, you're nothing. And I love that. I love that they were essential.
Yeah,
right?
That's like in-game storytelling.
Yeah,
like it's big. It's
and it was also played up by mechanics, which was awesome. I love that a ton.
Yep.
I loved the Ascension grid. There was lots of really cool abilities to unlock inside of there that suddenly became really apparent to like the impact they had on my gameplay and the actual in-game stuff.
I really liked the. I wish maybe there are more of them. Maybe I didn't trigger enough of them. But I really liked all the like. You go for a camp, and then Gladiolus is like, "Hey, let's race in the fucking morning." And you're like, "Cool, yeah." And they get these little character modes.
Yeah.
Prompto, me and him hung out on the top of a hotel or something, and like chilled. And he told me some little story about like how I never thought you'd like me, and I was like, "Oh, this is great." Like, I wish there were. Maybe I'm greedy. I got quite a few of them, but I wanted more.
Well, I mean, you get to like the big ones eventually, which was where you get like a big item for doing it. I don't remember all of them, but I know one of them. I think the hotel one is the top one for Prompto, and then there's the fishing one. That's the big one for Gladio. Or no, it's the one where you take the flowers to his sister.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then there's a fishing one with him. I don't remember what Ignis's is, but there are a lot of them. It's just you have to go to particular locations.
Yeah, you go to exactly. And like I wish again, I probably didn't go to every campsite, so like. Another thing I really liked was in a couple dungeons there are just like campsites in the dungeon, and like kind of useless, but like at the same time I liked the idea of like we're fucking tired, like this is like we've already halfway through this dungeon and it's already night, like we need to rest, like that, like you can get an eat boost or whatever the fuck.
And it's a great visual design is that they put the runes as a thing that repels them, so it makes sense why they're safe instead of just being like the campfire keeps us safe.
Yeah.
Darkness apparently is the worst thing in this world. I don't think a fire is going to do the job.
Yeah.
I
love just the idea of like we're fucking tired and we're gonna rest.
I like the camping thing. I liked waiting until camping to get my experience. Like I actually had to go and rest and like basically think about my day.
Enjoyed that too.
Yeah, and then the cooking was amazing.
Cooking's awesome.
Cooking's just amazing. The
buffing for hunts was like a lot of fun. Prepping for it.
Yeah, and so Japanese to make food look so fucking good.
Yeah.
So like that was all amazing stuff. I loved that. So it was like a lot of the component mechanics of the game were amazing.
I love the memes that popped up about like Ignis, like Ramu just like fucking thunderbolt and there's like this huge explosion. And he's like, I've come up with a new recipe. like that's what you're saying after this?
Yeah. That's the thing. For a few times they were like, they would say stuff about the summons and be like, it's nice to have a thunder god on your side and stuff like that. the one-liners and the communication between them when you did a dungeon crawl or whatever like that.
A lot of unique banter. A lot of good stuff.
Great banter.
Yeah.
I love the banter.
And that's such a weird, like, good attention to detail compared to, like, some of the oversights in this game, you know what I mean? Like, making custom dialogue for when they fall down a thing in a dungeon. It didn't need to be there, but it added a little moment and it made you feel more like you were there.
That's
and,
where I bring it full circle. So this game went through so many different stages and with so many different games along the way.
It sounds like it was such a clusterfuck.
It was
for such a long time.
It sounds like a huge clusterfuck. That when they decided to make this into a bro trip, that was the best part. The team, your banter, the guys on the team, all the characters, the character stories behind each of them, the bond between them. I was less sad about Noctis dying and more sad about the bros not being able to hang out anymore.
Yeah, like,
it was all about the bro trip, and the bro trip was amazing, and I felt really close to all of these characters and how close they got to each other. Right, that was the Final Fantasy I think they wanted this last version to be, but they still had so many components of the older game left in that they didn't get those out and or refine them to bring them back into the game. They were just like, fuck it, we gotta release
It's crazy, but I almost feel like this game could have benefited from another year and a half of development or something, you know, like, just, it could have been one of, like, the best Final Fantasies ever. Yeah. And as it stands, it's still great. Like, it's still up there for me. Like, you know.
I had a ton of fun.
But, it's just, like, it's just, like, you guys were so close to getting to, like, perfection or true greatness, and, like, you made a really good game. Yeah. Like, you made a great game, and they shouldn't be disappointed in what they've done. No, it's amazing that, like, it came out this good, honestly. Yeah. And I'm glad it did. Yeah. But again, like I said, for me, like, I almost feel like I didn't get my Final Fantasy fix. Yeah, it's weird.
So last two things we're going to hit on. First thing is art-wise, just visuals for the game, hitting quickly. Monster designs, I think we've already hit. I like the monster designs. I was happy with that. Yeah, I don't think there was one I looked at where I was like, oh, that was ugly. Like, the Bandersnatch looks dope. Yeah. Fucking Behemoths look awesome. The character designs were generic pop star, J-pop stars. I ended up liking something I complained about in the last Spoilercast again was I believe I did anyways. I might have just said this to you maybe off air. But I complained about this didn't it didn't feel like I was in a new culture or anything. There's a lot of people just in jeans and t-shirts. So this is the thing. They tried to make this into feeling extremely current day. They're like, it's set in like almost a real world today, except for there's like magic soldiers and monsters. But as I got later in the game, when I got to Lestalem and stuff, there's these girls wearing these stupid like sideways like overall things, whatever they are. There's weird open patches and they're wearing bikini tops. But even that was like enough to me. It was still like normalish, but like I was like, this is what I wanted. This is a little more what I wanted. Like. They still kept it so much trying to focus on making this into this real world we live in today thing, right? Like we have today's technology of cars and power lines and all that kind of shit. That a lot of it ended up being too punching you in the face with it, being like, this is current. Yeah, this is normal life. Look at this fucking normal ass car and look at this. It's like, for a long time I was like, where's the fantasy? Aside from like a flan or whatever, you know. But then there were small things like that, like in Lestalem, women, which I think they explained were the only ones who could go into the radiation. They went into the nuclear, they were because they were the only ones that could work in there for some reason. I forgot. They made an explanation as why women were the only ones. Yeah, I remember. Couldn't do it. But they were all wearing the gear for the women who were working in there, and that's why Lestalem was like that. Altissia was stunning. Yeah, like just stunning work. It was a labyrinth of like Paris. It was extraordinary. It was really cool. And people were there in different classes and levels and stuff, and underwater things. Like it was there. They were trying to go for almost like a Euro trip kind of thing, and they accomplished it. I just think it was still all a little bit too subtle. Think so? Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful though. Beautiful. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like Altissia in itself as a city is extraordinary. Yeah, like, absolutely. Amazing piece of work. Lestalem is actually really, really cool. Right? I like Lestalem too. Yeah. I really a lot of the outposts were very samey. Yeah. You know, it was just like, here's a fucking gas station. You're like, yep. Yeah. It was kind of, again, I was kind of... That was one of the things I wish they kind of would have altered in it a little bit more. And also, don't give me a map that shows me areas I'll never get to. Like, you're in Altissia, and you're looking at that map, and they're showing all that shit around Altissia, and you're never going to go there. I thought there was more to this game. Like, what was episode Duske? Did you get that entire region? You just got Duske. So you just got... That's still a big area. Yeah. So that's basically the game. Like, that's where you spend most of your time, you know, is in Duske. So I kept thinking that, like, oh, this is one part of the open world, and there's going to be another one. And there never really was another landmass we went to that was open world, too. Nothing else was open world except for Duske and that desert. I thought there might be, like, a more fanciful looking one, you know? Well, I thought that was going to be what was it called? it was supposed to be the Oracle, Luna Freya's hometown, which you end up just like looking at a cliff at it after it's on fire.
Yeah.
And you're looking at this place where you're like, oh, I want to go there, and it's all these like bridges and mountain pieces and shit like that. And you never get to go to it, right?
Yeah.
There was so much of the game at the end where they're just like, they didn't let you go in and kind of do what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right?
You got this brief glimpse of something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I want to just quickly hit back on. There is late game, end game content to this game, which usually is done before a boss fight, before the final boss fight. This all happens pretty much after that. So you finish the story and they just let you back out into the world to go finish all this final content.
It seems like there's a lot of post-game content.
And there's a shit ton. And it's amazing stuff. Like, I even like in the ending sequence, you can go back and actually get Nyx's daggers from Kingsglaive.
Oh, cool.
And they're like the second best daggers in the game. I personally think they're better. Like, there's a better one that does more damage, but they give you like infinite stat boost on like every fucking thing.
Oh, cool. I didn't even know that.
So what happens with that, and I love this. It was so Final Fantasy. Is if you go all the way through, and as soon as you finish the Ifrit fight, right, and you go into the tower, when you go into there, you've got to wait and hear a scream of a behemoth. And if you hear it, that means that everything else behind you is respawned, and you've got to go back, fight your way through all of it. If you go back to the very front entrance, this new Necromancer has spawned. You kill him, and he drops Nyx's daggers.
Oh, that's so cool!
Yeah.
That's awesome!
Like,
Shit!
that's fucking Final Fantasy to me.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah, shit like that where you're like, how the fuck would I have known that?
Yeah.
Great, cool.
And then there's other amazing endgame content. So I looked, I've done some of it and looked up the rest. There's the Pitos Ruins thing once you get the flying car, which is like a freaking 2-hour jumping puzzle with no monsters.
Oh, also weird that you only get the airship after the game's over.
Yeah.
Kind
and you
of
even have all the pieces beforehand sitting in your fucking inventory the entire game. But like this jumping puzzle, if you aren't familiar with it, go look up the video of it. It's insanity. I've never seen anything like it in a Final Fantasy. It is like whoever solved this at the time, I'm grateful, so I never have to do it myself. Or have to try and follow a guide and go jump left, so grateful. That stuff was great. The ending optional dungeons, like with crazy things like the last one being a whole dungeon of 22 floors where you can't even use healing items.
Yep.
Lots of amazing endgame content with stuff like the Nyx daggers and things you got to go back for, and all sorts of cool moments like that. But I again wanted to do them before I had to do the fucking final dungeon.
Same. Once I'm done, I feel like I'm done.
I'm done. Yeah.
I'd rather get prepared before the final boss. Yeah.
Yeah. So going back just quickly so we can wrap this up. Art direction wise, on the cities, I definitely liked. I liked a lot of it. I wish the environments in between were more.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wish. Yeah.
And not even by much, because like Dusky was a little bit more interesting with those like branching rocks that were going across everywhere. Yeah. That was a little bit more interesting, but just give me a little bit more of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And
something a little more fantasy-ish.
Yeah. Just pump it up by a tiny bit.
Yeah. If they were if that was like a 5, just go to like a 6, 6.5. Don't go too far, but like yeah.
I like the weapon designs. Most of them were pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I used the trident a lot for the Royal Arms. I love all the different animations for them. They're all the different tridents.
I loved all the different attacks that are attached to all of those Royal Arms and everything. I loved the Artemiger chain. That was a lot of fun to pull off every time. And then like waiting until it's just low enough to hit it to make it do a lot of damage, and have your whole team like you're like, here, have some, and you're like, yes.
Yeah.
And then they'll just start hammering, and then when you have all 12 of them all the way to the end, the whole combo is so great. And like when you finish off with your dad's sword, you're just like, I love that.
Oh, I beat Arden's second form on your Super Saiyan.
Mm-hmm.
I just held triangle and pressed forward, and I just killed him. Like, he just kept warp striking, and Arden would kick up and like and I just kept. I was like, it's working. Like I just kept doing it. And it was over with. I was like, oh, weird.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
You mean like the actual like Super Saiyan portion of the fight? You mean though?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Not the first part or the last part. Yeah. The second part.
There were some really amazing boss fights inside of it too. Like I didn't even really understand that they could be like this. Like fighting Ariana,
the Dragoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you fight her in the air when she does her jump in the air, you can have a full aerial combat fight with her, which was freaking cool.
Yeah.
You know, and you like actually smash her into the ground and chase her down, and then chase her back up and like go ching 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 and shit. Which was amazing to show more than just you like warping around in small spaces. You know, a couple of good character designs, like Ariana's design was good, Arden's design was good.
Yeah, I wanted her to be like even more Dragoonish personally.
Yeah,
but like I don't know, maybe her like was her bottom half like not armored, but she just had like a weird dress thing, or was
I just think it was like a light dress thing with some armor on the sides.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you can actually there's a way to bug her to permanently join your team.
So. Going, what I want to hit on.
Yeah.
What was the next thing you want to hit
It's just the future of the franchise.
That's what I want to talk about too. Yeah. I think they have a great. I know every Final Fantasy is different.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have a great template here for Final Fantasy 16 already.
Mm-hmm.
Take this combat system, and you can don't touch it too much, but do refine it a little bit, make it a little more easy to use.
Mm-hmm.
In the future, let's have other party members. I realize that this is their bro trip. That's fine. That makes sense. I wish I could have had Dragoon Lady on my team. Core. Yeah. I wish I could have brought him in or something.
Mm-hmm.
Switching up parties is a big part. I would like to have that in the future where I get a choice where I have my 3 guys with me and it's the Dragoon and the fucking the mage and whatever classic Final Fantasy shit, right? I if they go open world again, which I assume they will, more variety, like half the size of Duscae and make a different continent where it's that kind of shit, right? Like more variety in that kind of thing.
I want like Tomb Raider. I want a open path.
Yeah. That would even be better, right?
Yeah. Like, Tomb Raider had moments where it would get down into, like, a corridor, but then you get out to this big area, and you're like, I gotta do a bunch of shit in this area, and then move on. If that was the intention with this, they didn't do that. They just gave you a big open world and then filtered you through tunnels.
Yeah, go nuts in Chapter 3, and then you're in Chapter 7 all of a sudden, that kind of thing. I also, when you're making an open world, and I know this is a huge thing a lot of open world people have not figured out yet how to do, fill it with more meaningful stuff. Like, it didn't feel as empty as Metal Gear Solid 5, because Metal Gear Solid 5, there's almost, literally nothing. There's like, animals you can hunt and shit, but, very rarely and stuff. But this game was like, oh, I'm wandering over here, what am I going to find? It's an elixir. It's just and that was all it was. It was just I went all my way to go down this weird forest path, and, nothing was here.
All that stuff, too, later on at the end of the game has stuff in it. So, certain places have, crazy weapons just sitting on the floor after you've finished the game.
Yeah, and I mean, that'll help you probably for the next dungeon to go into with the sealed doors or whatever, but I'm not sure Micro are even going to play those.
Yeah.
What do you think about the future of the franchise? What is your... Going forward, what would you like them to implement, and what would you like them to...
So, in general, I think Square Enix has a really good grasp now. They understand that Japan's probably not going to be their market for much anymore, and they have to start hitting younger audiences, and, that's where, for everyone... they need to do that. So I think they've accomplished most of that, and they have a better idea on how to refine their games into something more. And then now that they have that, and they have a system in place to take the franchise into its new direction, because they can't be turn-based combat games anymore, right? Because Final Fantasy was always that formula, a turn-based combat, some world with treasure chests and bosses, right? So we needed to keep some of those components, now make this open-ish world, and turn this into... I think they have all the components they need. Now, I think that they need to put that Square Enix polish that made those games... because Square Enix used to just never release anything bad. It was just always how did they come up with this? Every time they turn something on. I think they're still very capable of doing that. And they need to do it with Final Fantasy 16. And I think they can. So I'm
hoping they learn from their mistakes with this game, where it was a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And they make, a skeleton first. They kind of when we're making a drawing, we make the loose figure, and then we... detail it out a little more. And
I think that this is it gives me hope that the franchise is now going to come back, right? That there is now going to be more greatness coming from Final Fantasy.
There's hope.
Yeah, I don't have to sit back and just be like, okay, I don't know why they keep doing what they're doing, and I think there's now hope. I think they've gotten all of the Japanese studios. Most of them have had a lot of trouble recently because Japanese gaming has changed. They're into more casual, fast. Simple games, things that they play. A lot of the mobile stuff is big for them.
Yeah.
These kind of games, I think, have been around so long for them that they're washed out with it. I think now that they understand how to try and start pitching this out to the U.S. and North America and Europe and stuff like that, I think we have a chance for them to make something more. I will put out that if Final Fantasy remake is balls. I might get a little worried again. I know that it's a different studio.
Yeah, I wouldn't be.
I know it's a different studio working on it, and it's under a very strict Square Enix supervision. But they need to just keep... and it's not just me. I mean, in general, the populace they'll lose Final Fantasy if they fuck up a remake like Final Fantasy 7.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
So, that's their next hurdle, and if they cross that, I will have full confidence that 16 will be another great Final Fantasy.
Would you like to see something in this vein, or like I think we're both on the side that we'd want a little more fantasy in our Final Fantasy?
Yeah, so that was my last point. For the next one, I think we need to go back. Let's stop with the technology in the current Final Fantasy 13 was technology. Even the summons were robots that transformed at the end of the day, even though they were mystical entities. Mm-hmm. There was all technology in that one. Let's get back to Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 7's fine too. Like Final Fantasy 7 had technology and stuff in it, but like no 8, no, and even I found
actually, you know what? I got vibes of 8 in this game a lot.
Yeah, I did too. Actually, a lot of it. But I want like 9 actually more in technology levels and setting and stuff. Like there was technology, but it was more steampunky.
Take 9 and turn the dial forward a little bit. You know what I mean?
Because like 7 had all that technology in it, which is more like this game, right? 8 had tons of technology in it. It was way more current. It had like full functioning normal cities.
I think they had a card in that game too, actually. Yeah.
And then 10 was still technology, which is post-apocalyptic technology.
Yeah, I really loved 10.
They had advanced technology that got wiped out, and then they're all living off of it.
The Machina.
Yeah, because like I mean, they had a giant orb they could contain tons of water in. Obviously, they have technology.
That's true.
You know, and then same thing with 13, 12. 12 was a rollback that was like steam.
Actually, I kind of like I don't like 12's gameplay, but like I actually really like 12's world.
Yeah,
that was what Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Advance 2 took place in. Ivalice.
Yeah, so like let's go back to that world a bit. And just like let's spin up the Final Fantasy.
Yeah, and like I think I said this in previous podcast, I really want more. I want them to take advantage of their history. I want more things like that Behemoth thing where I feel like I'm in the world and like shit, this is a huge thing and it's walking by this log that I'm in and like does it know I'm here and a little bit more stories. Make it make it be there's a fucking giant Tonberry who's like going through a city or something, slicing people up or something like that, or a monster who's taking refuge.
Again, like this stuff, all that stuff existed in Final Fantasy 15. It was just after game content, so like you're never gonna go play that stuff. There is literally a King Tonberry that you have to go fight.
Yeah, but like, is there a story behind it where like you're talking to someone and they're talking about how this Tonberry? I'm thinking Witcher 3. I know I haven't played that game, but like they implemented their bounty. I think they called them in that game, but their hunts like in a manner where I thought every hunt felt like I'm just completing someone's story. Yeah, and this was just like I'm doing this for money. Yeah, which is fine too.
And it was like the only money resource, so like you had to do a lot of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's about it for me.
Yeah, I think that's it. I have faith going forward in Final Fantasy. Yeah. I think that they I'm hoping they take away the right lessons from this game and that they know what they're doing going in the future. Take the right things from this game and just keep refining and keep improving.
Yeah, I think they're going to do it because they took so much fan feedback over all of the demos and stuff, and they spent so much time changing it according to the fan fears. And the combat system was a sign that everyone was like, combat, and then they got that fucking Square Enix beautiful, right?
And try to hit a story, I don't want to say a story like this where it's like 4 guys being bros or whatever, but like try and hit those emotional notes you did in this time again, where like, because like as much as I love like 8 even, or something like that, like the story never really truly got me. No. And this is it's a lot different. There's voice acting and a lot of more stuff to draw you in, but
I was never emotionally drawn into any Final Fantasy except for 7. That was the only one that ever like kind of got me a couple of points, like Eris's death and shit like that. But I want, because this one hit me, like I even welled up at the end when I like everyone died or like he died and then or even there's a chance that everyone died. You never really know because they just took off after a bunch of demons at the end. But like that last campfire scene and then watching all the photos that Prompto had taken scroll by, I was like the bros, like that hit me. I want that emotional context, just with more fantasy, more magic.
That'd be nice too.
Not just like
we didn't really talk about that because it was such a non-thing.
No, it wasn't a big deal that the magic spells didn't exist as I was casting them. I would like to have more magic spells, yes, but I also just mean more magic. Like most of the magic in this world was all about warping and shit like that. Like that was their magic and the summoning of the weapons and all that. I want more of that because I love that in 9 where like there was so much magic going on. And same thing with 7. But like I just want kind of more of that, and I think the franchise is going to go really well from this point on. I think they're listening. I think they're following along with the whole thing. They've got my confidence, and as my last review of this, I really enjoyed this game. I obviously put a lot of time and effort and hours into it. I still had my Final Fantasy grind. I still did all that kind of stuff that I want to do, but other than that, it had its faults, and it wasn't the greatest Final Fantasy I've ever played.
Nope.
But it's got to keep the components to one day do that.
Mike, before we go, one last thing.
Yeah.
Let's make a friendly bet. Nothing on it because we probably won't remember. When do you think we get the first glimpse of Final Fantasy 16?
Not until we have a release date for Final Fantasy Remake.
Which is when, do you think? Because I'm thinking like... I don't even know if we see it next year's E3, like 2018. Maybe PlayStation Experience 2018. I think we might get.
We'll see one of those silly cinematics that has no gameplay and it's like maybe 10 to 20 seconds long with the release date.
And the logo really it says Final Fantasy 16.
Like for the Final Fantasy Remake release date, which might happen in one of the events in like the end of the year.
No, I'm talking Final Fantasy 16. When we got our first glimpse, bitch. Give me a date. I say PSX 2018. Like, do you think E3 2018? There's no way we're seeing it this year.
What was the thing we reported on recently where they said that they were talking about Final Fantasy 16 already?
Yeah, they were talking about pre-production on it or something, or ideas for it.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, probably E3 2018.
Okay, cool. He thinks E3. I think PlayStation Experience, but most likely 2018.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Pens and Pixels Final Fantasy Bitch Fest. Contrary to all of our nitpicks, we truly love the game.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening. I'm at the CalG on Twitter. Mike is at Mike Kent Draws. You can find us on all social medias.
Yeah.
Pens and Pixels, that is. Pick your poison. Yeah. And until next time, we out.
We out.